Welcome on, my friends, to the Sweet Spot, where IT leaders share the insight with other leaders and others that want to lead. My name is Carlos Vargas, and in every week, I have my two co-hosts, Howard Holton and Paul Lewis. Hello, guys.
Hey there.
How's it going?
January already is gone.
It's amazing, right? Like January went by like it was I don't know, like it was summer vacation, right? Anybody feel like it was about 3 weeks long,
Yeah.
right?
It does.
And
Now,
now-
in fairness, my January started on the 11th after I went on vacation, so it kind of was 3 weeks long.
Yeah, mine was the 7th, so we're not that far off. I had like 2.5 weeks off at the end of the year. 2 weeks at the end of the year, I guess, a week at the beginning of the year, or something, But yeah, I'm with you. I took a bunch of time off, but I didn't really get recharged. I ended up having some medical stuff. I got illness over the holidays, so I really didn't get a chance to recharge. But I'm pumped for 2023. It's going to be amazing. I'm not sure why. I'm just trying to be pumped for 2023.
You're super excited.
I'm super excited. I'm ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I am kind of excited because Universal Studios is opening Super Mario World.
Right.
So we're already planning an executive summit at right there in LA. I'm going to stay at the Sheraton right there on property.
Nice. And it's the 100th anniversary of Disney, so that's going to be a decent amount of celebrations.
It is. I'm a little disturbed by some of the swag they've made for the 100th anniversary, but when I go out there for Super Mario, I will definitely, Universal Studios, I'll definitely be hitting up the mouse.
Is it a black and white? Is that is a color disturbance, or is it what?
Have you not seen it? They took the mouse ears and then they dropped like platinum, because it's the 100th anniversary, so it's the platinum anniversary. They dropped platinum like over it, and it looks like silver man love.
Oh, interesting.
It's really
weird.
Disturbing.
That's weird. All right, I'll have to now go check that out.
So, Howard, I know that you're a techie guy. You sound like a radio DJ.
Yeah. Well, I have radio DJ. Like this is just I haven't put any filters on, but I do have some filters. So let's have some fun here real quick. So I have radio DJ, and then I have sportscaster. Welcome to Sunday Night Aerodome for Monster Truck Rally.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I've been putting a bunch of effort and dollars into improving the quality of my audio, and I ordered, and I think it's sitting right outside the door. As you guys know, I was opening Amazon boxes before we hopped in to record, and I think my Insta360 AI enabled webcam is sitting outside the door. I'm hoping.
And what's the AI part of it? It's instantly makes you look better? Is that what that?
It does like face tracking, hand gestures. I don't really know how much I care, but I'm going to try it out and see if I actually care or not.
Right.
It's got some neat whiteboard features, right? So if you put a whiteboard, you can use hand gestures to zoom into the whiteboard, and it recognizes uses QR codes on the whiteboard to recognize the corners of the whiteboard. So I do some interesting whiteboarding and webinar things. We'll see if I actually like it, or if it's just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick. Amazon's return policy will once again get used.
Nice.
The Jabra has a similar feature, the Pentecost. It's actually really interesting that you're looking in ways to influence what you do and the technology. Why are you looking at that?
Well, I mean, I think we all evolve as we go through our careers, and I think we all kind of try to figure out what's our happy, what's our zen, what do we enjoy, and then how do we become better at the things that we do every day. I do about 80 appearances a year, about 2 webinars a week. So so it's not bad, and it's a decent place for me to kind of invest. And I kind of enjoy it. So it's not a bad, it's not a bad way for me to spend a little bit of money.
Is there an influence like that for other stuff? Or for like,
Eddie, I'm not going to make it easy for you this week, Carlos.
what's that?
I'm not making it easy for you this week, Carlos. You're going to have to. You're going to have
I think that's interesting. Like when you mentioned like that. So I think I Paul like
He's moving on. Strike and a miss.
next better. So wing better.
Yes, Carlos.
So I think that we know that Howard get influenced by Dungeons and Dragons and whiskey, but I think that from an executive standpoint, both of you consume content, go to conferences. There's a lot of different perspectives that probably we may say that you guys get influenced, but you also guys are influencing other leaders. What are some things that actually CIOs can probably influence, or different influences that affect you guys?
Well, I think the question is what are we influenced by?
Yeah.
What makes us tick? What motivates us? What gets us up in the morning? It's a big question that I know Paul and I hear quite a lot, and I think most people would be surprised by the answer because when we ask them, they don't get it right.
Yeah, and I find that interesting. You'd think from an observation perspective, you could look at a person and say, given your behavior, given your habits, given your decision making, these are the kind of things that influence you or motivate you. And I think some of that is true in the early part of your career, and it's much more difficult to predict in the latter part of your career, right? So in the early part of your career, you tend to be motivated by power, right? You want to create more power and create a bigger team. You want to move up the ladder. You're influenced by and motivated by promotion, right? You're motivated by your strength within the organization, your span of control within the organization. So power and that intrinsic stuff is important to you. But as you grow and change over time, you effectively hit I don't want to call it a ceiling, but you hit your comfort level, right? It might be CIO or CTO in a small, medium, or large organization. It might be CEO of the largest organization. But at some point, you're going to become satisfied in the job, and then your motivations change significantly, right? Because it's not about money or power or the latter. It's much more about what you do with your time and energy and influence, either to others or outside of work itself. So as an example, when somebody asked me 20 years ago what my motivation was as the product director was, well, I want to be a CIO. So therefore, anything I do, all my behavior will be based on accumulating different skill sets, different experiences, different teams, bigger teams to support that goal. But when they ask me now, my answer is none of those things, right? I've already achieved a level of success I think is reasonable for what I want to do. Like, I don't want to be the CIO of, the largest technology organization in the world, nor do I want to be a CEO of sort of a business services organization. I kind of like where and how I've achieved. And therefore, my biggest motivation is time, right? My biggest motivation is creating opportunity for myself to learn interesting things that I absolutely can use in my job, but not primarily for that. And I don't know, how do you?
Correct.
Do you see that spectrum too? And is that how you're motivated also, or is it something else?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm gonna roll back to kind of where you started, right? When you start in your career, it's just an infinite number of glass ceilings, and there's a hell of a crowd there.
Right.
When you first start, you're just at the bottom, because we all start at the bottom, and then there's a ceiling 4 inches above your head, and there's a million people trying to break through that ceiling, and then you break through that ceiling. The next ceiling's got a little bit more air and a few less people, than the next ceiling, then the next ceiling. Right? There's not one ceiling. and eventually you get to a spot where the distance between where you are and the next ceiling's pretty high, and you kind of look around and you're like, I found myself in a room where there's only 10 of us.
Right.
I have plenty of space to move. I get plenty of elbow room here, right? I'm not feeling crammed or stepped on. I'm actually cool. At this point, I'm actually now to the point where can I pull a few more people up here? Right, the air is pretty clean. Can I pull some people up here? Like, can we expand it? Right, it's pretty nice. And you look up and it's like, okay, cool. There's a couple of feet up there, but if I go up one more level, it actually seems kind of lonely.
Right.
And
lonely, or you either don't have a desire to obtain the skill set needed to get to that level, or that role simply doesn't interest you. It's not something that you've ever felt the need to do.
Yeah, I'm excited by what I do 10 or 15 times a day.
Right.
I'm not sure I would be that excited if my T changed to an E, right? If my CTO title changed to a CEO title. I could have the COO title now, but that title also, like, I actually thought that was going to be my evolution, that moving from CTO to COO would be the evolution that I wanted, and I refused the title. I don't actually want it. I like where I'm at. I like being a nerdy CTO. I like being I'm very happy with where I am. And it's funny, so I took over operations, which is why I would get that title. And I did it not because the money is great. I did it not because I really wanted the responsibility. Frankly, I want less of it, not more. I don't need more people reporting to me. Give me the same amount of money, make me an individual contributor. I'm just as happy. Shocking. And I had one of my employees come to me that had just been reorged under me. And she's like, hey, just so you know, when I came here, I wasn't brought here to stay where I'm at. I was brought here to run operations. And I said, okay, I wasn't aware of that, and that's cool. I'm not opposed to it, so let's just do that, right? Because once this stuff settles, once I'm not building operations, once I'm not defining it, and I'm no longer the pioneer, and this is now a running city, a running town, whatever you want to call it, I don't want to do it anymore. I like to create things, I like to build things, I like to grow things. I do not like to run anything. Right. So once this is running, yeah, by all means have that. And you can take all of the people that are in operations and you can go do that. And it's not going to bother me at all. It's not going to keep me up at night. I'm not going to stand in your way. Matter of fact, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen as rapidly as possible.
Right.
Because ultimately, that doesn't matter to me. Right.
In fact, your behavior over time probably predicted what you would be motivated by now. So as an example, as you grew your organization over time when you were CIO, CTO, you probably immediately put in a second command because you knew that day-to-day operations was less interesting to you and therefore you needed one of those people. Or you really built up your VPs, your senior directors, so that they didn't require your daily attention. Again, for the exact same reason, is because your time was more valuable. At least your time doing something else was more valuable than the day-to-day impact of that particular discipline that still worked for you.
There's only two places I want to spend any time. The first is, what are the fires that must be dealt with now that only I seem to be able to deal with? Happy to do that. The second is, what is going to happen in 18 months to 3 years that I have to start moving the ship for today?
Right.
Everything in between, I don't want to do that because it's not a good use of my time. I'm effectively stepping on someone else's responsibilities, and authority in doing that. Right. And then the only other thing I want to do is work with customers, work with end users, right? Whoever my customer is in the seat that I sit, and I've always had one, always, even if I had nothing to do with sales and what's external to my company, my internal stakeholders are still my customer. I want to spend as much time with the customer as I can. So I understand what do they need, what do they want, and how I can improve their experience. And regardless of the size of the organization, regardless of the connectivity to sales, right? That's what excites me. That's what interests me. And then I want to be able to shut off and be a human for as much time as I can. Right? I don't live to work. I work to live.
So I use the word time to describe my motivation. What word would you use?
Oh, it's absolutely time.
It's time. Okay.
Right? I mean, you could say engagement. That would be an acceptable word and one relevant to 2023, right? I want
Right.
to do things that engage me. Passion would have been a word I used in my 20s, but it's not really accurate. I'm not passionate about everything I'm engaged in, but I'm
Right.
interested in the things that I'm engaged in. I find them interesting in the moment, right? And I want to be engaged. I want to feel like my time isn't wasted.
Yep.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And if you would expand my time, it was I would like the ability to allocate my time in the way that I see fit. That's kind of the expansion of time.
Correct.
I want somebody to say, you have the authority, or for me to just take it, you have the authority to allocate into what's in the best interest of this company, your division of time. That's kind of how I see that. Yeah.
That's 100% correct. Right. I'm not drug any direction. Rather, I define the direction.
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't participate. That's not the goal, but I want to be able to control over that participation. And that means it needs to be meaningful. That's why engagement is really what I'm looking for. Right. I don't need to lead the meetings that I'm in. I'd rather not. Because if I'm leading, then I feel like I'm forcing people down a path, right? I'm removing their agency. I want to enable a meeting. Great. I'm happy to enable a meeting. I want to contribute, right, as an equal participant whenever possible. Great. And I want to be interested by the topic and the conversation that occurs. If those things don't occur, I don't want to be in it.
Yeah. In fact, meetings are a great representation of motivational behaviors. So I'll give you a clear example. A mid-level manager, a beginning CIO or CTO will engage 50% of the time within the meeting. Like they'll want to have an opinion, they'll say a lot of things, they'll want to make a decision. They will want to be seen as relevant and important in that setting. Whereas we'll call it a grizzled veteran, as we might be, will prefer to sit back, listen, understand, engage in a strategic sense, help move the ship left or right, or help make decisions faster if we need to, but not feel the need to have an opinion on every particular item in any particular meeting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at what you guys are describing, and I'm seeing an interesting pattern. You guys have made a decision about something, where you want to go, and what makes the difference. Like, how are you describing that? You like what may be a little bit more immediate, what's going to be a little bit more long term, but not the in between. How will an executive or a CIO or a CTO get to that point? People that are listening to us that maybe starting in their role, like you said, maybe wanted to contribute. How do you get to that place that you said, I am comfortable with not having the power for everything, or not having to be in charge of everything?
Well, the most powerful person in a room never says they're the most powerful person in the room, right? So let's start there. Anytime you start talking about giving up power, people get a little antsy. I've worked really hard to get here. I've worked really hard for the power, blah, 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 blah. The most powerful people in a room generally don't have to say they're the most powerful people in the room. They just simply are. So first, I would say just take that language completely away. Because I think what most people miss, what most leaders miss, is every time you come back to today, again, you are supposed to be strategy. So you're supposed to be out what is coming next that the business needs to be ready for. So 18 to 36 months is a fine place to sit if you're a technology leader. Every time you come back to today, something failed. Every time you come back to today where something didn't fail, you didn't delegate properly. And that's your failing. Right? So when I talk about what I have to do, the todays, those are just simple failures. Something broke. Something didn't go the way it was supposed to. It's a fire, and I have to go help put it out. And sometimes the fire was caused by me. No doubt. I'm far from perfect, right? And so sometimes I say something, I don't communicate it well. Somebody then tries to execute, things explode, and now I got to come in and go, oh, my bad, mea culpa. Like I didn't set a proper expectation. I didn't have a full understanding, whatever it happens to be. Sometimes it's external. Sometimes it's customer driven. Sometimes we're simply missing a process that we didn't realize we needed to have because or our current processes didn't take into consideration this thing. And it's such a large, like interdepartmental thing that it rises up to my level and I have to deal with it. Those don't happen a tremendous amount, but they happen often enough that, it's part of your day. And every single one of those, my goal is I only want to see this one time. Right. So what do I need to do so that this fire can be handled by the local fire department instead of the federal fire department? Because I'm the federal fire department. Like it's not amazing if I have to get involved. So what can happen so that I don't have this particular fire again? Right. Different building can be on fire. It's fine. It's the first time I've showed up. But let's not get the fire chief involved in every fire. And then if I'm involved in the day-to-day, I'm missing something. I'm missing a second in command that can handle that. I haven't delegated properly. I haven't set the expectation. Maybe the organization isn't mature enough. Those are the things I solve right away, immediately, right freaking now. Because they're not on fire, yet it still hit my desk and has to be dealt with in a hurry. So how can I take that, make it composable, and delegate it to the right person or persons that really should be handling it? Your job as a CXO should be far thinking, delegation, support, and growth, and not ever micromanaging in any way, right? My goal is to never have to ask my people what they're doing, ever, in any way. We have a one-on-one, and if they decide they want to tell me, awesome. But there's no fires. I know all the metrics I need to know. So if you give me that or don't give me that, it doesn't change my job at all. If you want my feedback, if you want my opinion, if you want my perspective, if you want my mentorship or my leadership, ask away. I'm always happy to give it. But you should never feel like you have to give it to me because I trust that you're going to handle it, that you're going to take care of it. It's off my plate. It no longer touches my desk. And when my CEO says, what is marketing doing? Because I have marketing, I say, specifically, what do you want to know? If I don't know, I will just ask. And when he says, I want to know about this and I have no idea, I don't make it up. I don't go, damn it, why don't I know that? I just say, cool, I'll ask. I'll have an answer for you in an hour.
I agree. I'm going to take a different angle to the question, Carlos. I'm going to say that two things are both true. So truism number one, you are not comfortable with your current role and your progress until such time as you've documented and understood what you think the end goal should be. If you're just progressing from role to role to role and keep seeing something bigger, something better, something more interesting, and you're always reaching higher, then you'll never be satisfied. But if you've already defined what you think great looks like, great in role, great in pay, great in time, great in size of company, great in scope, great in mandate, great in things, then you'll never know how close you are to achieving that. Because the closer you get, the more satisfied you become. Right? So not having an appreciation for what you want to be is part of the motivational change. That's part number one. Part number two, I don't think what Howard and I are saying is that the original motivations in the first part of your career are wrong. Because I had those motivations. I guarantee Howard also had those motivations, right? There were points in our career where it was in many ways appropriate to be motivated by influence, esteem, longevity, going up the ladder, I use the word power, but I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean creating a different span of control. Some of those things were appropriate in the times we needed to do it in order to get the experience we needed to achieve what the goals we actually achieved on. As long as you understood that both those motivations change over time as you go and change and move and add an experience, and that there's a goal you're trying to get to, that at some point it will be enough. And once you reach that enough, then you can change your motivations and look at things much differently. The third truism I think I would still put out the table there is none of the three of us believe that we're at the end, even though a couple of us are older than Carlos and might be closer to that end, right? But at the very least, we still know that there's steps to go, but we know what those steps should be. We're accumulated that experience, and we're satisfied where we are until such time as those opportunities open up.
What's my career progression isn't up is, I think, the point.
Right.
What motivates me, it's also not money. Money's not a motivator right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That may change, but it's not right now. Right. Like if someone came and offered me twice what I make now for a different role, it would no longer be the instant yes. Earlier in my career, it was. Early in my career, I never took a role that was less than a 40% pay raise.
That's a big raise.
Yeah, it was huge, right?
Yeah.
But I just didn't. I just didn't. My responsibilities increased significantly. My role increased significantly. So my pay increased significantly. Now 40% doesn't really motivate me. I'm pretty happy where I am. So tell me about the role. Right? Sure, right. I have a floor. Like let's don't get me wrong.
There's a minimum.
Right. There's a floor. I'm a big boy. I have adult bills. But there's not. But there's no longer like the next rung on the ladder doesn't contain a dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's about time. So how does this next thing give me more time? How does it make me a better me? Right. Because that's what I use time for. I use time to improve myself. So at the end of the day, when I look myself in the mirror, I can go, yeah, I'm a little better than I was yesterday. Because I'm certainly older than I was yesterday. Like this doesn't get prettier anymore. Right. So I now have to look. So now
on the downward curve.
Yeah. It's definitely on the downward slope. So now when I look in the mirror, I have to look a layer deeper.
Yeah.
Did I improve? What did I involve? And now it's to the point where, am I changing the world? Like, what's my outward effect? And am I working towards something that I can look back on with, hopefully eventually I'll have grandchildren, but not soon, and go, Grandpa made that. Grandpa did that.
That's hilarious, because that was literally my next question to you is, what do you think your next motivator will be? It's going to move away from time to something else. I would have used the word legacy, and you just described it, legacy, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Right? What will I be known for? Either my grandchildren or other peers or my industry. What am I leaving this world having done? Right? What's my mark? What's the signature that I've left with? That will be my next motivator. And you could tell with my behavior, and probably yours, we're doing some things now to set that up, even if it's not our primary focus.
Agreed. And it's been my motivator for a while, and it's really affected my last few job choices. So I got some really interesting job offers. And when I thought about them and I thought about what does that say about my legacy, I didn't want that to be part of my legacy. It wasn't that they were bad, right? It wasn't that people shouldn't choose them. It's just they weren't part of my story, right? And that's become a huge influence in how I think about what I do and what my next steps will be and what my next roles will be and what the next thing is that I do. Because I am now to the point where money is not the motivator. Sure, right? I don't make $1 million a year. I'm nowhere near it. Someone made me an offer for $1 million a year, I'd have to give it a strong consideration, even if it was more effort. Right? But it still would have to be a really good job, because I don't know what I'd do with $1 million a year. Right? Like, okay, cool. I'd have a nicer car, but I don't really drive.
Right.
Like, I have a bunch of cars. For those who don't know, I'm a car collector, and I have a bunch of cars, and I really like the quality of my car collection has improved in the last decade, hand over fist. But I don't flippin' drive. Right? I do maybe 200 miles a month. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Uber is more than that.
Right.
Yeah.
You Uber more than you drive.
That's not my car. That doesn't affect my car. So when I think about what's my next car, because that's a much more tactile kind of evolution of things, I have no clue because I don't flippin' drive. I have a 2016 Ford F-150. I love it because it is the absolute worst car for me. I don't do trucky things, right? I don't like big vehicles. Most of my life, I've gone for easier to park, easier to drive small vehicles. But I live in Denver and we get snow, and I have a north-facing house, which means I live with ice for 6 months.
Right.
Four-wheel drive F-150 quad cab. The passengers in the back seat is like a limousine. It drives really nice. It drives really easy. I drive 200 miles a month, so I don't care about gas mileage, but it's not awful, right? I constantly am going, I think I want to buy the new Porsche 911. And then I go, oh, it's a lot of money. And I drive 200 miles a month.
I can just imagine Porsche in the snow.
I have driven the Porsche in the snow, and because I do have a Porsche, and I will tell you, it's a tremendous amount of fun. I spent an entire year with my BMW 335 manual on summer tires, rear-wheel drive only, on summer tires in the snow. It was so it legitimately was a ton of fun, right? Not because it was a crazy drive. It was at times, but because all of a sudden, any drive had me reconnected to the experience of driving. Right? It had all of the same stress, right word, and anxiety and excitement and interest that being on a racetrack did. Right? It didn't have danger. Like, I just had to be aware. I had to pay attention. The car it was like driving in the snow in a 1980 Cadillac. You know what I mean? Like, it had a whole bunch of weight over the, it was rear-wheel drive, had a whole bunch of weight, had absolutely no nannies that did anything for you. It was a very visceral kind of experience. It was floaty and crappy, where the BMW isn't, but kind of that same thing, right? You had to be connected to the road. The windshield wipers were terrible.
Right.
This was pre-LED lights, right? So you could only see 4.5 inches in front of the front bumper, which was 9 feet away from your car, right? And so you're pressed up against the windshield while the stupid wiper is the defroster didn't work, so you were really connected to that car while you were driving, right? And that was kind of the same experience. Driving the current Porsche I have in the snow is a ton of fun. It's very connected to the road anyhow, and you have just a little less connection because it's just a little snow, so you got to pay a lot more attention. And frankly, that level of excitement is what I look for in my roles now, right? How do I get exposed to things I'm not generally exposed to? How do I have conversations that light a light bulb? Right? I've been around a long time and had the opportunity to do a lot of things, and I have what some would consider expertise in a bunch of areas. How do I make that deeper? How do I make that wider? How do I continue to stay interested there? Because it's not really, like, I'm not really as excited by the command line as I used to be.
Can you pinpoint when you shifted from the motivation of power to the motivation of time? Was there an instant? Was it gradual? Was there an obvious role that made your influence change?
It was kind of Hitachi and kind of after a little bit, because it just.
So it wasn't a point in time. It was a role that you started to engage in, saying, this role seems more interesting to me than the previous roles I've been doing.
Well, it also gave me space. Like, the difference in the roles was huge. So it gave me space to kind of reflect and go, what really motivates me? What makes me me? Like, what do I want to do? What do I want to be when I grow up? Kind of questions, I'd always been so push, kind of like I'd always been the pressure, right? I always moved like a damn freight train, and thought that was what one had to do, and yet I found more success when I didn't. And so I started to kind of question the things I was told that were right, that I was supposed to believe, that I was supposed to do, and kind of reflected on them and went, well, some of those are silly, some of those are ridiculous, some of those are great. I obviously, like, I didn't discard everything I had done, right? I just went, my motivation can change, and that's not really a bad thing. And I can be far more valuable if I simply look at the world a little different way. And my return on investment, the return on the time that I spend and the way that I spend it, can be a lot less stressful and a lot less anxiety driven, and yet my value goes up, not down. And that was a very strange thing, but once I kind of figured that out, and once I embraced that, it changed my outlook on a lot of things. And the role that I've had between now and leaving Hitachi, right, the in between job that I took, it allowed me to walk away from that, and I wouldn't have before. Right? It allowed me to go, this role doesn't align with my motivations, doesn't align with the place I see myself and how I see myself, and this organization is never going to allow that to happen. So I just need to leave, and that's okay to do. It's not a failure.
That is an interesting observation. I probably would have made that being a third party to you, right? To say, this is what I've observed by you moving from a operator of IT to a provider of IT back to an operator of IT. I could have said to you, this isn't in your best interest. This is not what motivates you. You've passed this set of incentives, which allowed you to look at that and say, yeah, I have evolved from this, and I should evolve to something new now. That self-awareness is amazing, because very few people actually have that self-awareness. But I agree with you. Most of my motivation changes happened at the exact same time I made the scariest decisions in my career, right? Moving from development to product management, moving from product management to technology, moving from technology operator to technology provider. These things, the scariest changes I've made, have coincided with my motivations and where I was in my life, right? And therefore, it's predetermined how I've thought about, have engaged in the organization and my role generally. Carlos, that was some deep thinking. We're not often this deep thinkers in this pod, but this was a deep pod.
Yeah, it was an interesting journey for both of you. And I was thinking of my journey, and you share an interesting detail that I want our audience to keep. There are changes that sometimes happen, and you can take those changes not only as opportunities for growth, but also you should reflect, are you on the right spot, and should you make a different change internally, because a different motivation that could help you grow as a leader. Because what I've seen is the growth that happened in both of you as you made those decisions. So I think that was a very insightful podcast. And to our audience, make sure that you not only share it and you subscribe, but take the time, take notes, sit down with your team, because the wisdom that you're getting on this podcast is amazing. So, my friends, we'll see you on our next episode.